It's not often that you know the results of what you do. I was in World War II. I was 3.5 years during World War II. And we were told to do missions and fly them, and we did them, but we never knew what the results were or whether we had done good or bad. But in this case, we were before what is commonly called the magic carpet. And I knew all of the men, and when I flew with El Al, I flew with men who flew on the magic carpet, and I knew what they had done. And we had set the pattern of how it would be operated, where they would fly, how they would fly up the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba. But it was all secret. What we did was secret. It wasn't in the newspapers, it wasn't on the radio, nobody knew anything about it. It was what they call a covert operation. And that operation continued even before and after the magic carpet. It just ended in 2016 when the last covert operation removed the last Yemenites from Yemen that wanted to leave. It wasn't a secret anymore. We were flying from Shanghai, China to Israel in January and February of 1948. I'm sorry, 49. After we made our second trip, we landed here at the airport where now is Ben Gurion Airport. We called it Lida in those days. And when we arrived, the company had sent a cablegram and told us to return to Aden. We were told to return to Aden, and when we landed at the airport there, the British officer in command would meet us. And he was there on the ramp, and when we came off the airplane, he talked to the captain and he asked him and told him that we have 2,000 Yemenite people here who need immediately to be taken to Israel as fast as possible. Then the commanding officer asked, how many people can you carry on each flight? And Captain Curry, our captain, answered and said, we have 48 seats. We can take 48 people, but children under 2 can sit in their parents' lap. And the officer answered and said, this is an emergency for these people. Some of them are ill, they are out on the desert, they just have a tent, they don't have water, they're dying, and we have to get them out of here. Is that all you can carry? And Captain Curry asked them, how much does each one of them weigh, would you say? And he said, the answer was, they were very thin, they hadn't eaten properly for a long time, they weren't a large people, and they probably don't weigh over average about 80 pounds each. And Captain Curry answered, well, I can carry 12,000 pounds. That would be 150. But I'm afraid we couldn't get 150 on the airplane. And our mechanic that was with us said, we can take out the seats. And without the seats, we'll see how many we can get in. And the officer, British officer, said, I'll have 150 here just before daylight tomorrow. So the next morning, he showed up with trucks loaded with 150 of your people. But it happened to be the Sabbath, and some of them didn't want to travel on the Sabbath, even though it was a matter of their life and their death. So the rabbi explained to them that they knew it was a Sabbath. They checked with the head rabbi in Tel Aviv, and it was a matter of life and death. Then some of them did not want to get in the airplane because they didn't know what it was. And again, the rabbi explained to them that this was the eagle that was going to fly them to Tel Aviv to make their aliyah. We didn't have a ramp or anything, we just had a ladder up the airplane. And they began to climb the ladder and enter the airplane. After it got to about 100 or 120, it was getting pretty full on the airplane. And I have to admit that a couple, three of the bigger men went up and did a little pushing to get the last few in. Actually, we thought they were very brave because they really had never been on an airplane. They'd never seen one up close. And some of them had never seen an airplane fly. But we took off on time just before daylight, and we flew nonstop. It took us about 9 hours to fly to Tel Aviv. They were very happy when we were on the ground and put the ladder up, and they came down from the ladder, and many of them kissed the ground or prayed. We felt so good about it, and they were so grateful that we knew the other people that were still in Aden needed to make the trip themselves. So we filled the airplane with gas, turned right around, and flew right back to Aden. And when we arrived, the commander of the base at Aden had another 150 ready to be loaded. We did that for 7 days straight. And we took a day off and we got a night's sleep. And after a break, we made 5 more trips, and altogether we managed to bring 1,800 of them. And I want to tell you what happened next. They told us to go home. And when we got home, they told us, you broke the rules. And they told the company, you can't fly any more international flights. I was a navigator, and as long as they were flying locally, they didn't need a navigator. So I was out of a job. But it just happened that there was another airline starting up that was going to fly across the North Atlantic. And they hired me. You may have heard of the airline. It was El Al. I am now 90 years old. And I am very grateful. And I want you to know, as a navigator, in those days, we navigated by the stars and the sun, and we had to know what time it was. So I had to buy a chronometer. And believe it or not, I found one I could wear on my wrist. It was a Rolex Oyster Perpetual certified chronometer, and it still keeps excellent time. I'm scared to death someday it's going to stop running, and I will probably at the same time. I remember something that happened from one of the Israeli officers at the airport. I can close my eyes and hear him say it right now. And I think it put it all together for us. And I was very appreciative, and from then on, I was very grateful for what we had done. He said very plainly as he was leaving the airplane, he turned to us and he said, "You have done a good thing. It is a good thing you have done." And when I look out and see all of you, it truly was a good thing
אני
we did.
בהחלט רואה עד כמה היה טוב מה שעשינו. תודה רבה לכם.